Hello everyone, CSWort here, and I have a question for you. Do you too want to have any object created in your Minecraft world, whether it be from a 2D image or even a 3D object you found online at the click of a button? Well, too bad. You can't do it at the click of a button, but you can do it in a matter of minutes, and I'll show you how to do that. Stick around. Now, the first and easiest option is to have a 3D object already available, and there are many websites too that I prefer are Thingiverse and Sketchfab. With Thingiverse, you can just scroll down to what you want. Say I want this impossible cube. I'll click on it. I'll go over to the 3D print here. It's in the blue. I'll click the 3D view just so I can see what it looks like. Yeah, looks good to me. So I'll click the download button, and it'll save as a still file. Over on Sketchfab, you do want to go over to Explore Downloadable so that you can only see ones that are available for download. You can click the one that whichever one you want. Let's say I want this red disc. I can view it and I can download it. Now to download it, you will need to create an account or log in with Google or whatever. So I'm not going to do that because I already have one over here from Thingiverse. I should mention that it is kind of important to have your file as a GLB or OBJ file format. So I just Google searched still to GLB. I'm going to click and drag my file over here, convert it, and now I can download. And now I have a zip file, but I also kind of just want it as a GLB, so I'm going to download it directly as a GLB. And now, in my downloads folder, I have my GLB file. If I open it up with MS Paint, I can see it in the 3D view here. And yeah, that's my file. So go ahead and delete the other one, and I'll just move this one to Documents for the next step to keep it clean. The second option is to convert a 2D image into a 3D object and then import that into the game. So I'm just going to go to Google and search for some random images. And what we don't want is anything with watermarks or a complicated background like this cheetah here. This dice might work, but I think that the ground might mess it up a little bit. And ideally you want something like this, where you have a all white background or just no background at all with the object clearly defined. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this image to my downloads folder, and now we can clean it up a little bit. Now what we're going to do is convert the image. So I'm going to open it up in MS Paint, and I see my resolution is already 640 by 640. That's good. You want a square image, ideally less than 1000 by 1000. If you have one that is too big, you can always click the scale button up here to resize it down to like a reasonable size. And then if you also had a background, you can click the remove background button, and if there was a background, it would remove it. Now this one did just clear up a little bit of those edges because it was a bit of a blurry picture, so I'm going to leave it. Now I see that my image is good, and I'm going to save it. It's currently a WebP file, but when I go to save, it'll convert it to a PNG. That's perfectly good. We want a more compatible format for what we're going to do next. So save it, close it, and now we have our new file here. Now the next step is to convert the 2D image into the 3D object, and there are many ways of doing this, but I'll go over two that I found work the best. The first is a free website called 3d.hunyuan.tencent.com, and it's a Chinese website, so we'll go ahead and convert to English, and we'll click login. We'll go over to mailbox. You'll type in your email at whatever your domain is, and you'll click the Get CD button here. It'll send you an email with a code. It'll probably end up in your spam folder because it's a Chinese website, but you'll take whatever the code is and type it in here. Then you'll click the I have read and agreed to the user's agreement and click login. So once you get logged in, you'll be greeted to the homepage that looks something like this. And what you'll do is, again, translate to English so we can read it. Sometimes you have to click and change it back. And now we see off to the side here, there are two different options. The first is a prompt to 3D object. The second is an image to 3D object. I don't know what these translations are getting at. Now, if you have multiple pictures, you can upload them here. But since we only have our one picture, we're going to select single picture, click our upload button, and we're going to select our fixed image. So this one here was the PNG. It'll take a second to upload. While that's doing that, I should mention that this is a completely free website. Every day you get 20 free generations. I've already used one. And you can also explore other models that are already right here. But it looks like the image is ready to go. So there are a couple different things right here. We'll go ahead and try and translate it back. So Geometry and texture will give you the shape and the coloring. Geometry, texture, and staging will give you the background as well. We don't care about the background since we made that all white. And the number of faces doesn't really matter. You can leave it at the default. And there's only one model to select, so don't worry about that. So say generate immediately. And this is going to take some time. Okay, so now we see that at the halfway point here, it has made a 3D object as close as it can to the reference image of whatever that masterpiece was, and that took about a minute. So now the remaining 2 minutes is texturizing to give it all the colors. And here we go, a masterpiece now in a 3D model, and it is pretty accurate to the original creation. Now this one did add a third eye up here, which not sure where that came from, but because it was a 2D image, you can't really complain too much. And this was all free, and you can do this 20 times in one day. Now we have our 3D object, so why don't we save it? And to do that, we're going to go over here on the bottom right and select the file format of GLB. You could use an OBJ, but it'll save all the texture files separately. So we'll leave it as a GLB, so it's all one file, and click download. It'll say download successful. If you have a pop-up blocker, if you don't, it'll bring up the pop download window where you can then save it to your downloads folder. You can name it again, whatever you want. Masterpiece. Now that we've downloaded our file, it's in our downloads folder here. We can open it up with 3D Paint and view it in the 3D view. And yeah, it's that same object saved locally to our computer, all for free and in only a matter of minutes. Now, if we wanted to, we could also retexturize it by like using the oil brush, select some of the texture there and repaint it and then save it, but I don't really care, so I'm just going to go ahead and close it. Now, what is the other way to get our masterpiece file? Well, a little bit more complicated. You'll have to forgive me, I'm not going to take the 20 minutes to show you how to install ComfyUI, but once you have ComfyUI and maybe the ComfyUI Manager installed, you'll go over to the workflow, browse templates, skip past 3D API because all of these ones are pay to win, and go down to the one that's just called 3D. And here you can see the Hunyuan 3D 2.0 model. Now this one will not give you textures. There's also the multi-view and multi-view turbo, which again, we only have one image, and this one that can create multiple views from a single image, which you could plug into these, but again, you will end up with texture anyway. So we'll go to the Hunyuan 2, and now it says, hey, you don't have your checkpoint file, so we'll go ahead and download it. And what we will do is put it in the models, ComfyUI, models, checkpoints, and I had the multi-view turbo here just for testing, but you make sure that it is saved as Hunyuan 3D-DIT, whatever it is by default. And that'll take a minute to download. Now that the file has finished downloading, what we'll do is we'll go over to the model library, click refresh, load all folders, and start typing it in, see if we find it. And there it is, Hunyuan 3D DIT version 2 in our checkpoints folder. So we can go ahead and close that. And now we can upload our file. Again, we wanted the JPEG, so this one. And we're going to leave the settings the same. This is the only thing we would really want to change is the CFG scale. Currently it's set to 8. The higher the number, the closer it is to the reference image, but tends to turn out a little bit worse. The smaller the number, the less it will look like the image, but it will look a little bit better. Editor's note here, I should mention that the seed value will in fact change what the end result is. So make sure that you leave the control after generate to randomize so that every time you hit run, you're going to get a new model. We can also adjust the resolution up here. I wouldn't bother adjusting the number of chunks, but the octree resolution goes from probably 256 to 512. If you want a really clean image or model, you set it to 512. I'm just going to leave it at 256. All of this we can ignore because it's already bypassed, but we'll set the algorithm to basic so it becomes a blocky voxel. And now we can just hit run. And it's going to go ahead and load the model, send it through ClipVision, sample it, so it makes all of the different 3D images needed. And once it does that, it's going to go ahead and decode it. So it's taken all of those multiple images and it's trying to compile them into a 3D object. This is the part that takes the longest, and if we had a higher resolution, it would take even longer. But at 256 on my computer, it doesn't take too long, and then it converts that to a mesh, and now we can view it. So pretty good for a completely free, locally processed image to 3D object. Now, because we have such a weird object, a masterpiece to begin with, the final product is, well, it's there. There's not really too much more you can do with it. I've played around with this. It's an object. I'll show you what a 512 looks like after I show you how to save it. But if you wanted to, you can change the model to be a normal so that it looks a little bit more realistic or distinguished instead of just a blurry mess. And we can export it as a GLB, OBJ, or still. Again, we don't have any texture, so it doesn't really matter which one we go with. I'll just do a GLB, and I'll put it in my downloads folder, ComfyUI underscore 0001 underscore .glb. Sure. And now we have this item saved, but before we move on to the next step, I'll show you what customizing it to a 512 looks like. And here we are. We now see that the object has been made at a much higher poly. We can clearly distinguish that this is an eye, and I mean it's still a mess, but yeah, it's probably as good as we're going to get. I'll even save this one as a second one, so save it as sure number 2. And now we can move on to actually converting this as well. And in case if you were wondering, if you set it to surface net, you end up with a smoothed out image like this. However, the end result when you actually go to convert it will be the same, so that's why I just recommended leaving it on the basic, because it also makes it a little bit faster to generate the model here. Alright, so now the second to last step is to open a website called objtoschematic.com. It's free, you don't even need to sign in, and what we'll do is we'll add an object. Now, we can add a 3D object as a GLB or an OBJ, but the OBJ requires a material file, and because we didn't generate the material file, we wouldn't be able to upload it. So that's why I went with GLB for all of them, and what we'll do is we'll first select our masterpiece, or the impossible cube, since that was the easiest. And because it was a cube, whatever we scale it to shouldn't really matter, so we'll hit import, and oh no, it looks like the cube was actually on its side. So we can go over here to the rotate option. We'll rotate it along that axis, and then rotate it along that axis until it looks straight. So looks good to me there. Now what we can do is we can translate it. We'll move it back this way, over this way, so it's a little bit more centered. And now I actually think that's kind of small, so I'm going to scale it up. Make sure you click the center block here, and it's very finicky, but right there, that looks good to me. And now I have my 3D object. Some of it seems to be clipping underneath the ground, so I'll go ahead and move it back up by clicking the arrow, and all looks good right there. Yep, I'm satisfied. We can see here the solid lines are chunk colors, chunk boundaries, so that would be a little bit bigger than 3 chunks. Actually, let me scale it down so it fits within 3 chunks. Come on, get easy there. Over right there. I think I've resized it to the exact same, but all right. I have my 3D object. I like the scale of it within a Minecraft world, so now I got to convert it. Over on the left side, we'll go down to Generate Voxels, and there are 2 options here, either Rasterizer or Raycast. I like the way that the Raycast looks on this model particularly, so I'll leave it at that. And if we had any texturing, we could add these modifiers to remap colors, add dithering, add some noise. But since this was all a basic shape, we'll hit apply. And now we have our 3D object as Minecraft blocks. Well, non-texturized Minecraft blocks, because the last thing we need to do is set it to generate blocks. And it will automatically find whatever block is closest to the original color based off of some built-in block colors. Now, it goes from 1.21.7 down to 1.13. There are custom ones if you have a subscription and you're signed in, but we can also make our manual block palette by going through. We can select all, say to exclude, and let's say I wanted this to be a grid specific one. Sadly, right now the search function doesn't seem to be working, but if I wanted like the smooth stone, let's see, smooth stone. I'd hit apply. Oh, you have to click include block once you select it. So smooth stone, include block, hit apply, and now we see this is what it looks like if it was all made out of smooth stone. And you could add modifiers if you had multiple blocks to replace certain blocks, but because this one's all the same, it doesn't really matter. So I could replace all the smooth stone with dirt or crying obsidian. I don't know. Well, what wouldn't look too bad? Red wool? Sure. And here's my object. And I'll hit apply because I like how it looks. And now I'm ready to export it. So off to the side again, I'll hit export as, and there are a few different options. We have Lightmatica, Sponge Schematic, the old version of schematics, MC functions, and command blocks. I'll show the Lightmatica in the end, but if you were interested in what command blocks looks like, it will give you a list of functions to paste into command blocks. In this case, it needed 23 of them, so you could also download a file and do all that stuff, but that is an option. I'm not going to use it. But now we can focus on the other ones that we generated. So I'll just move this off to the side. Doesn't need to be there. You can also delete it, but doesn't matter. So we'll add a file, add a GLB, and we'll add the masterpiece. Now this is the one from tencent.com. And we know that it's going to be pretty tall, so we'll just make sure that the height is limited to 64 blocks. And we'll say to import. Once again, it's on its side, so we'll go ahead and rotate it so it's upright and facing the front. And now we can translate it so that it's up here, back to the side. Move it forward some, and we'll do the same process real quick. Generate voxel. I kind of like the way that raycast looks a little bit better here, so we'll do that. Now, if we wanted to, we could add some texture modifying, since this one does have textures to go with it. Dithering makes it look dithered. You can increase or decrease the scale of that, but I don't really like how that looks. You can also add a lot of noise, but again, I don't really care for the noise. I'm not one of those types of people. I like how the image looks by default right here. So I'll click apply, and once again, we'll generate blocks. And this time, because I'm not going to filter out anything, we're just going to leave it as the very messy top, because that seems like how broccoli looks like in real life to me, and we'll hit apply. And once again, we can export, and this one I will actually save as a Lightmatica file. We'll just leave it as masterpiece.glb, and it will be saved as .lightmatica. And if you're interested for what the other ones look like, we'll move him out of the way. So grab that back one, move him to the back. Add another object. We can add our low resolution one. And again, because it was low resolution to begin with, when we import it, it's not going to be the same high quality as that one. But trying to convert it to voxels, you lose quite a bit of detail because it's already much lower resolution than that one. And yeah, it just doesn't look that great. And you'll see that there's a warning message down here saying that there's no material. That's because the the GLB generated had no texture file with it, so it doesn't matter. And we'll just remove that one, and we'll add the other one, which was higher scale, the 512. Make sure it's a 64 as well. So now that it's the same size as this one, when we go ahead and convert it, we see that it's not even the same shape. The beak is a lot better on this one than this one. It kind of got filled in by whatever this part of the puff is. But if we go ahead and change it to raycast, it didn't really do much. What about generating it as blocks? Well, that only changes it to block format. So yeah, although it's a much lower resolution and it was free and you can do this as many times as you want, the one from Tencent.com made with the 2.5 model just looks much better, much better in my opinion. But in case you were also curious, if you had the one from the other method where you didn't set it to basic mode and you left it as the mesh, I have that one saved right here as well. But you'll see that even with the much higher resolution that it generated, turning it into a voxel, still not nearly as good as the original one from the 2.5 model. And so that's why I'm going to stick with the 2.5 model anytime I need to do this. But if you want to, you can always use the ComfyUI one because it's pretty accessible. And if you were also curious to know what it looked like if you scaled it up, and then converted it, because you should have much, much higher resolution now. Yeah, you can see the beak very clearly. The eye would be right here, the other eye right here, but obviously I'm not going to make something this big because I wanted it at a scale of 64. So we'll just get rid of that. And we're actually done in here because we have our Lightmatica file for this one, and this one we didn't really bother to do anything with. Oh yeah, one more thing before I go. So aside from the 3D objects, you can also add default shapes if you wanted to, but you can also add an image. Now, the reason why we didn't choose the image, we'll make it 64, so one block is 10 pixels, is because this will end up making just a 1 block wide pixel art. And that's not really what I wanted. I wanted a 3D object. So if you want pixel art, by all means, this website again works really well for that. Props to them for making it free and open to everyone. If you really want to support them, go ahead and set up a pro account. Now, whenever you're ready, you can take your Lightmatic file, move it to your .minecraft/schematics folder. Then within Minecraft, make sure you're facing positive X, positive Z. You'll open up your schematic menu or Lightmatica menu, load schematics, masterpiece, load, and we see that it's already been placed. Now, we can also configure where it's positioned. If I want to move it a little bit closer to me or move it up and down, I can. I'm just going to leave it like it is right now. So, looking around at this, we see that, yeah, it's got a lot of birch planks and sandstone and fletching tables. I didn't change out or replace any of the blocks, but I probably should have replaced that sponge here. Doesn't look too great. As we make our way up the canopy here, actually we can see the inside here. It's all hollowed out, but making our way up to the canopy of this broccoli tree, it is, yeah, this would be pretty good scale if I wanted to build this in a survival world. And looking on the outside here, it's again what it looks like in the editor. So if I wanted to make any changes, I would do it there before copying it over. But making our way to the front here, we now see his beautiful face, this wonderful image now brought to Minecraft, because now you know how to do it as well. If you took a 2D image and made it into a 3D format like this, before it would take quite a while, but thanks to all the tools now available, we can do this pretty quickly within a matter of minutes. But you might be saying, I don't have access to a 2D file. In fact, I can only play in a game, and I don't have access to those object files, and I can't convert them and put them into a schematic folder like this. What do I do then? Well, sadly for you, if you can't do any of this, you get to do it the fun way. So, what is the fun way, you might be asking? Well, it is pixel measurements. We'll take my building of Kamurocho as an example. I started off with a map of what the city looked like. And then, at each point where I wanted the sidewalk to be, I placed a pixel, a black pixel, and I marked down the coordinates, and I made note that this is a 764 by 687 image. I wanted it to fit within a 384 by 345 scale because when I walked across the entire city, I noticed that that felt like about 350 meters. And I wanted that to be the same scale as the player height, which is about 2 meters. So I made my scale based off of the size of the door, which is 2 by 1. So that's why this is now scaled down a 2 by 1. I took all of this and then put it into another image. And this I rescaled so that my coordinates, so that the pixel coordinates right here would match up with the in-game coordinates. So for example, this dot right here would be at 1,000 or 2,450, 708. And then I build a straight line down to this one. 2,453, 52, 930, 793. And I make a straight line or make it at an angle as needed. And you do that just to map it out. Because once you've mapped it out, you've only done the very bare bones minimum. Sure, this looks roughly like what it should be, but there is nothing here. In fact, you can see, I skipped doing the Champion District and the section right here, as well as Little Asia, because I knew that would all be a mess. And I did the big shapes first. Then from there, it was a matter of literally just eyeballing. So the literal method that I used was I would walk over to a door that's 2 blocks tall. So this platform is going to be about 1 block wide, 2 blocks right there next to the door, and 2 blocks here for this pillar. Then I was on to the next building. I would use first person to look up and say, okay, so we got about a block there, 2 blocks there, 1 block there, 1 block there, and then the windows up there. And I did that for the entirety of the back section hotel district. Eventually, I realized I could use the building placements as dividers, which made determining how wide a building should be a lot easier. Of course, I found many discrepancies on the map with how some of these just don't line up or make sense, or how like buildings clip into each other right here going into the Little Asia district. But yeah, when all else fails, using just your eyeball tends to work really well, because you've lived your life long enough to know that that should be a block. This is 1 block wide, so this is 2 blocks wide. The gate here should be 1 block going up and over and down, 1 block in the middle, and 1 block on that top section. Eventually, I did find a FreeCam mod which did speed up this process, but even then, I still had to eyeball the entire city. There was no ruler to help me with anything. And in the end, it made me have 400 hours of playtime. So, are you willing to put in the effort to make it the hard way, or will you give up? That's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.